You say yes when you want to say no. You do favors for people who offer you absolutely nothing in return. You bite your tongue to keep the peace in situations where you should be setting a boundary. You think you are being a good person. You are not. You are being manipulated. You need to wake up to the reality of your daily social interactions. Manipulation is not some rare hidden event. It is happening in your face every single day. It is the friend who uses guilt to make you agree to something you hate. It is the coworker who flatters your ego just to make you do their work. It is the partner who cries to make you forget that they just lied to you. You are being moved like a chess piece, and the worst part is, you still think you're the one making the moves. Most men are easy to play because they are predictable. They have handles sticking out of their psyche that anyone can grab. But there is a rare class of man who has removed these handles entirely. He moves through social environments like a ghost in the machine, perceiving every trap, feeling every pull, and reacting to none of them. He is not lucky. He is structurally impossible to manipulate. He has realized that in a world of predators, your only true defense is to become psychologically untouchable. Over 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli studied these exact social dynamics. His writings exposed the ugly, brutal truths about human nature that polite society desperately avoids talking about. He did not write comforting theories about how human beings should behave. He wrote exactly how they are. He exposed the cold mechanics of power without apology. He understood that you cannot stop people from trying to use you, but you can make yourself completely impossible to use. He proved a terrifyingly simple law of human nature. Manipulation only works if you need something from the manipulator. The moment you stop caring about their opinion, you completely destroy their leverage. There are 6 behaviors of men who are impossible to manipulate. If you possess these behaviors, then you are likely among the elite men who are impossible to manipulate, observing and walking through life untouched by the emotional traps that destroy average men. But if you lack them, you are actively handing your money, your time, and your sanity over to the people around you. Today, we are locking the doors to your mind. We are going to break down the exact psychological armor that stops manipulators dead in their tracks. Pay close attention. The person using you the most right now is praying that you keep scrolling. 1. They starve the need for validation. You are currently a psychological slave because you are addicted to the sound of your own praise. The only reason a manipulator can move you is because you have a hollow space inside your chest that you are trying to fill with the opinions of other people. You are a target because you want to be seen as the smartest, the strongest, or the most reliable person in the room. You think this is a virtue. It isn't. It is a leash. Every time you wait for a nod of approval before making a move, you are handing a stranger the remote control to your life. The man who is impossible to manipulate has performed a surgical removal of his need for your opinion. He doesn't look for a mirror in your eyes to know who he is. He has already decided. Look at the way you move through a room. You are constantly scanning for a signal that you belong. You are checking to see if your jokes landed, if your clothes are right, or if your boss is happy with your performance. This constant surveillance of other people's emotions is exactly what makes you easy to steer. A predator doesn't need to use force to control you, they just need to withhold their approval. They see your hunger for validation, and they use it as bait. They give you a little bit of flattery to get you close, and then they threaten to take it away the moment you stop doing what they want. You are being trained like a lab rat, and you are doing the work for them because you are terrified of being the villain in someone else's story. Machiavelli understood that the masses are led by their vanity. He knew that a man who craves the high of a compliment is a junkie, and the world is his dealer. When you are addicted to validation, you lose the ability to see reality. You stop asking, "Is this a good decision?" and start asking, "Will they like me for this?" This is how men end up in debt, in bad marriages, and in dead-end jobs. They are chasing a feeling of importance that is being manufactured by the very people who are using them. The sovereign man has realized that your approval is a cheap currency. He doesn't want it, he doesn't need it, and he certainly isn't going to compromise his mission to get it. He is perfectly comfortable being the most hated man in the room as long as he is the most effective. Think about the last time a coworker or a friend gave you a backhanded compliment or used a subtle shaming tactic to get you to do a favor. They said something like, "I knew I could count on you." You're the only one here who actually cares. You felt a surge of pride. You felt chosen. And then you spent the next 4 hours doing their work while they went home early. You weren't being the better man. You were being the mark. They identified your hook, your need to be seen as the hard worker, and they pulled it. The unmanipulable man hears that same line and feels absolutely nothing. He sees the play for what it is, a low-level attempt to trade a worthless compliment for his valuable time. He says no without an explanation, because he doesn't need you to understand his reasons to feel justified in his choice. The transformation begins when you realize that most people's disappointment in you is actually just their frustration that they can no longer use you. When you stop providing the validation they expect, and when you stop seeking it from them, the dynamic shifts. They will call you difficult. They will call you cold. They will tell everyone that you've changed. Let them. Their labels are just another attempt to shame you back into the cage. If you can sit in a room full of people who are unhappy with you and not feel a single urge to explain yourself or win them back, you have won the game. You have removed the handle by which they pull you. You are no longer a puppet. You are the architect. You have been taught that being agreeable is a path to success. That is a lie designed to make you manageable. Success in the arena of power requires the ability to be intensely disagreeable when your sovereignty is at stake. You must reach a point where a stranger's insult and a stranger's praise carry the exact same weight, 0. If you don't kill your ego, the world will use it to bury you. Stop looking for permission to exist. The man who is impossible to manipulate walks through life with a silent authority because he has nothing to prove to you. He isn't playing for your applause, he is playing for keeps. If you believe that starving the need for validation is a high-level defense, you haven't seen anything yet. You've learned how to remove the bait, but the next behavior will show you how to break the very hand that tries to set the trap. 2. They master the strategic pause. Your immediate reaction is a confession of weakness. Every time you snap back with an answer, every time you rush to fill a silence, and every time you defend yourself the second an accusation is thrown, you are telling the world that you are under their control. You are acting like a trained animal, responding to a whistle. Manipulation thrives on momentum. It requires you to stay in a state of high-speed emotional vibration so that your logical brain never has a chance to come online. The man who is impossible to manipulate has realized that the most powerful move in any interaction is the one you don't make. He doesn't rush to answer. He doesn't rush to explain. He uses the pause as a surgical tool to cut through the manipulator's rhythm and reclaim the clock. By doing nothing, he does everything. Silence is a vacuum that the human ego cannot tolerate. When you stop talking, the other person's anxiety begins to rise. They start to wonder what you're thinking. They start to feel the weight of their own words. Most men are terrified of this tension, so they kill it by talking. They apologize for things they didn't do. They offer information they should have kept secret, and they compromise on things they should have guarded, all just to make the silence go away. The sovereign man does the opposite. He sits in the tension like it's his natural habitat. He watches the manipulator squirm, over-explain, and eventually trip over their own lies. By doing nothing, he forces the other person to do too much. He turns a conversation into a trial, where he is the judge and the manipulator is the only one on the stand. The tactical pause is the moment you step out of the trap. When a manipulator applies pressure, they are trying to force you into a reflexive loop. They want you to act before you can think. But the second you implement a deliberate delay, you break the circuit. You are signaling that your mind is not for sale and your time is not a commodity. You are demonstrating that you are the one who decides when a conversation moves forward. This is not about being slow, it is about being intentional. It is the difference between a man who is being chased and a man who is observing the chase. Once you master the pause, you realize that almost every emergency someone else brings to you is just a manufactured crisis designed to steal your leverage. Visualize a scenario where a superior or a partner tries to shame you in front of others. They make a pointed, public comment about your performance or your character, and they pause, waiting for you to stumble over an excuse. Most men will instantly get hot in the face and start rambling about context or why it happened. This is exactly what the manipulator wants. They want your agitation. The untouchable man simply looks at them. He waits 3, 4, 5 seconds. He lets the room get uncomfortably quiet. He makes them feel the aggression of their own comment. Then, and only then, he asks a short, neutral question. Why are you bringing this up right now? By refusing to react to the content and instead questioning the intent, he has effectively flipped the knife. He has remained calm while they look desperate. You are currently a slave to the social beat of the people around you. You feel a frantic biological need to be polite and to answer questions the second they are asked. This is your greatest strategic opening. A manipulator will use your politeness to lead you into a corner where you have to say yes just to keep the flow of the conversation smooth. The impossible man doesn't care about the flow. He is perfectly comfortable letting a conversation die if the alternative is being steered. He understands that time is the greatest enemy of the lie. The longer the pause, the more the manipulator's mask begins to crack. They will start to fill the silence with future faking, false promises, or even more aggression, all of which are just data points for the man who is watching. You must develop the discipline to sit on the urge. The next time you feel that heat in your chest, that desperate need to clarify your position or to win a point, recognize it as the manipulator's hook sinking into your skin. Breathe through it and do nothing. Count to 5. Look at them with a clinical, detached curiosity. Realize that every second you stay silent, you are regaining your sovereignty. You are teaching them that you are not a puppet. You are reclaiming the authority over your own life. The pause is not a gap in the action. It is the most significant action you can take. It is the wall that stops the predator in their tracks. You have spent years being a fast responder, thinking it made you efficient. It only made you easy to predict. From this moment on, your response time is a variable that you control. You are no longer on the defensive. You are an observer of the world's desperate attempts to get a rise out of you. By mastering the pause, you are announcing that you are the master of your own emotional state. You are showing that your logic is the filter through which all reality must pass before you give it the privilege of your attention. This is how you stop being a target and start being a fortress. You have learned how to halt the attack, but the next behavior will show you how to render the attack entirely irrelevant. If you thought the pause was a powerful tool for control, prepare yourself for the internal shift that makes it impossible for any manipulator to even find a target to hit. We are moving from the tactics of time to the mechanics of the soul, where the very definitions of truth and lies are rewritten in your favor. 3. They observe actions, never words. You are currently drowning in a sea of lies because you have a fatal addiction to the sounds coming out of people's mouths. You listen to the reasons, the intentions and the promises, and you treat them as if they are reality. They are not. Words are the cheapest tools in the manipulator's inventory. They are a smokescreen designed to keep you looking at the horizon while the thief is already in your pockets. A manipulator can manufacture any sentence you want to hear in a split second. They can say, "I'm sorry, I'll change," or "I've got your back," with a level of sincerity that would win an Oscar. But if you are listening to their voice, you are already losing the game. The man who is impossible to manipulate has performed a surgical disconnection between his ears and his judgment. He has a hard filter that treats everything a person says as noise and everything they do as the only truth. He does not care about your why, he only cares about the result. Manipulation lives in the gap between a person's speech and their behavior. If you allow someone to explain away their failures, you are giving them permission to betray you again. Most men are hope-based observers. They hear a promise and they want to believe it so badly that they ignore the 10 times that person has already let them down. They accept the future faking, the promises of what will happen next time, as if it's currency they can spend today. This is psychological bankruptcy. The sovereign man is a data-based observer. He understands that a man's history is the only reliable map of his future. He doesn't judge the soil or the seeds. He only judges the fruit. If the fruit is rotten, he doesn't care if the gardener has a good heart or a valid excuse. He throws the fruit away and walks out of the garden. The harsh truth you are avoiding is that you use other people's words to lie to yourself. You hear the apology from the partner who cheated or the business associate who forgot to pay you, and you accept it because facing the reality of their actions is too painful. It's easier to live in the hallucination of their words than the cold reality of their character. But the man who cannot be manipulated has killed his need for comfort. He would rather be cold and correct than warm and delusional. He knows that words are used to misdirect, to gaslight, and to stall for time. When someone's actions contradict their words, he doesn't ask for an explanation. He recognizes that the contradiction is the explanation. The behavior is the confession they are trying to hide with their speech. Consider the future faking scenario you've experienced 100 times. A business partner or a friend tells you about the massive deal that's just about to close, or the big change they are making in their life. They use vivid, emotional language to paint a picture of a future where you are both winning. You feel the excitement, you feel the connection, and because you are focused on the vision, you ignore the fact that they haven't contributed a single dollar or a single hour of real work to the current project. They are using words to buy your effort for free. They are using your imagination against you. The untouchable man cuts through this noise instantly. He asks one question: what have you actually produced in the last 30 days? If the answer is plans and promises, he treats that person as a zero. He doesn't wait for the future, he weighs the present. Think about the apology loop that keeps you trapped in toxic relationships. Someone hurts you, sees you are ready to leave, and then delivers a masterpiece of a monologue. They cry, they admit fault, and they promise it will never happen again. You stay because you heard their sincerity. But 3 weeks later, the behavior returns. Why? Because you rewarded their words with your presence. You taught them that they don't have to change their behavior. They only have to improve their script. The impossible man doesn't accept apologies, he accepts changed behavior over time. If the behavior doesn't change, the apology was just a tactical maneuver to stop you from leaving. He understands that "I'm sorry" without change is just manipulation. He doesn't listen to the tears, he watches the hands. The reality of human nature is that people will tell you exactly who they are through their actions, but you will ignore it because you want them to be who they say they are. You are choosing the lie. Machiavelli knew that the masses are always taken in by appearances and by the outcome of an event. Most men are part of that mass. They see a smiling face and a confident voice, and they assume they are safe. The man of high caliber sees the smile and looks at the eyes. He hears the confidence and looks at the track record. He knows that a predator doesn't bark, a predator purrs. He treats every verbal interaction as a hypothesis that must be proven by physical evidence. Until the evidence is in, the words are worthless. While mastering the observation of behavior provides you with a lens that pierces through every lie, it is only one layer of your defense. You have learned how to ignore the noise, but the next behavior will show you how to handle the social consequences of your clarity. If you thought judging by actions was a cold perspective, prepare yourself for the behavior that makes you the most feared person in the room, the ability to stand in the fire of other people's judgment without flinching. We are moving from the data of the past to the direct confrontation of the present, where your willingness to be hated becomes your ultimate source of freedom. 4. They are comfortable being the villain. You are currently a hostage to your own reputation. You are being moved like a pawn because you are terrified of a single word: selfish. Or perhaps it's cold, arrogant, or heartless. The manipulator has spent years studying the social contract you signed without realizing it, the contract that says you must be good to be accepted. They know that if they can make you feel like the bad guy, you will do anything to fix the vibe. You will compromise your boundaries, you will give up your time, and you will hand over your resources just to prove that you aren't the monster they're pretending you are. The man who is impossible to manipulate has looked at that contract and burned it. He is perfectly comfortable being the villain in your story if the price of being the hero is his own submission. He doesn't negotiate his boundaries to keep the peace, because he knows that a peace that requires his silence is just a slow-motion surrender. Niceness is a social tax that the weak pay to the manipulative. You think you are being considerate, but you are actually just being compliant. When you agree to a favor you don't want to do, or when you let someone disrespect your time because you don't want to make it a thing, you are signaling that your self-respect is for sale. A manipulator uses shame as a precision instrument. They will cast you in a role: the supportive friend, the dedicated worker, the loving partner, and the second you step out of that role to protect your own interests, they will sound the alarm. They will tell you that you've changed. They will tell everyone that you are difficult. The sovereign man hears these labels and smiles. He knows that when a manipulator calls you difficult, it actually means you are impossible to control. He accepts the label as a badge of honor. Think about the guilt trip you are currently navigating. Someone in your circle is using their disappointment as a weapon. They are acting hurt, pulling back their affection, or making passive-aggressive comments about how they expected more from you. They are waiting for you to crack. They want you to come crawling back. apologizing for a boundary you had every right to set. Most men can't handle the cold air of social disapproval. They rush to make it right. They provide the explanation the manipulator is fishing for. The untouchable man does the opposite. He sits in the discomfort. He lets them be disappointed. He understands that their bad mood is their own responsibility, not a debt he has to pay. He doesn't fix the atmosphere. He lets the manipulator drown in the silence they created. Consider the family member or the old friend who uses history to steal your present. They bring up a favor they did for you 5 years ago to guilt you into doing something you know is a bad move today. They say, after everything I've done for you, you're going to be like this. This is a classic moral trap. They are trying to make you the villain for moving forward. If you were a good person, you would stay stuck in the past with them. The impossible man recognizes this for what it is, a move for dominance. He doesn't defend his growth. He doesn't explain why he can't help. He simply says no, and allows them to believe he is the most heartless person on earth. He knows that his reputation in their mind is a hallucination he cannot control, so he stops trying. He prioritizes his mission over their memory. The harsh truth is that you are playing a game you can't win. As long as you care about how the manipulator perceives you, they own you. They can manufacture a grievance out of thin air just to keep you on the defensive. But the second you stop caring about being the good guy, the game ends. You become a black hole for their shaming tactics. They call you selfish, you agree. They call you cold, you remain silent. By refusing to fight the label, you take away its power. You realize that villain is just a word used by people who can no longer use you. You are free to act in your own interest without the heavy anchor of other people's expectations. You aren't here to be liked. You are here to be effective. 5. They maintain zero attachment to outcomes. You are a slave to whatever you cannot walk away from. Manipulation only works because you have a hook in your soul, a desperate need for a specific result. You want the girl to like you, you want the boss to promote you, you want the deal to close, or you want the crowd to applaud. The moment a manipulator senses your need, they become your master. They realize that they can withhold that outcome to force your compliance. They start playing with the scarcity of what you want. They pull back, they get vague, and they drop hints that the prize might go to someone else. Because you are attached, you start to panic, you start to perform, you start to compromise your values just to keep the possibility alive. The man who is impossible to manipulate has realized that no single outcome is worth his sovereignty. He is always prepared to walk away from the table, and that is why he is the only one with real power. Desperation has a scent, and social predators can smell it from a mile away. When you enter a negotiation, a date, or a professional interaction with the mindset that this must work, you have already lost. You are operating from a place of poverty. The manipulator will use your attachment to turn your own desires against you. They will move the goalposts. They will ask for one more thing. They will test how much of your dignity you are willing to trade for the result. The sovereign man operates from absolute abundance. He has internalized the truth that there are 8 billion people on this planet and an infinite number of paths to success. He doesn't need this specific deal, this specific person, or this specific win. He wants it, but he doesn't require it. This lack of need makes him a nightmare for the manipulator, because you cannot threaten a man who is already at peace with losing the prize. Think about the push-pull dynamic in your current relationship or social circle. Someone is playing games with your attention. They are hot one day and cold the next. They are waiting for you to chase them. They want to see you sweat. They want to see you double text, ask what's wrong, and try to win back their favor. They are using your attachment to their validation as a remote control for your behavior. The untouchable man doesn't chase. When someone pulls back, he lets them go. He doesn't ask what happened. He doesn't try to fix the connection. He is so unattached to the outcome of that relationship that their absence doesn't create a vacuum in his life. It just creates an opening for something better. By refusing to chase, he flips the power dynamic. The manipulator who expected a reaction is suddenly the one feeling insecure. Consider the high-stakes professional scenario where you are being tested by a manipulator in a position of authority. They hint that your future at the company depends on you doing something unethical, or simply something that violates your boundaries. They expect you to buckle because they think you need the paycheck more than you value your character. They are counting on your fear. The man who is impossible to manipulate has already done the math. he would rather go broke than be a puppet. Because he has zero attachment to keeping the job at the cost of his soul, he can look the manipulator in the eye and say no. His willingness to lose the position makes him the most dangerous man in the room. You can't leverage a man who has already accepted the worst-case scenario. The reality you are avoiding is that your attachment is actually just a form of one-itis. You think this person, this job, or this status is the only thing that will make you whole. This is a lie you've told yourself to justify your own cowardice. As long as you believe there is only one path, you are a target. But the second you realize that you are the source of the value, not the outcome, the world changes. You stop being a seeker and start being a chooser. You stop trying to make it work and start observing if it's worth your time. This level of detachment isn't about being numb, it's about being free. It's about knowing that your life is a fortress that remains standing regardless of who enters or leaves the gates. You must develop the checkmate mentality. Every time you find yourself wanting something badly, you must immediately visualize yourself walking away from it without a second thought. You must practice being okay with the no. When a manipulator tries to use your desire against you, you should already be halfway out the door. You are a clinical observer of the opportunity, not a victim of it. By maintaining zero attachment, you remain in control of the only thing that actually matters, your own actions. You stop being a reactor and start being an operator. You realize that the greatest power you have is not the power to get, but the power to leave. There is one final layer of defense that makes you truly invincible. You have learned how to handle the external labels and the internal desires, but the final behavior will show you how to guard the very machinery of your mind. If you thought being unattached was a powerful stance, prepare yourself for the behavior that ensures a manipulator can never even find a hook to pull on in the first place. We are moving from the tactics of social interaction to the deep architecture of the self, where your awareness becomes a surgical tool that removes your vulnerabilities before they can ever be used against you. 6. They map their own internal hooks. You are currently the architect of your own manipulation. Every time you are moved, steered, or coerced, it isn't because the other person is a genius, it's because you are a leaking ship. You have left handles sticking out of your psyche that anyone with a basic understanding of human weakness can grab and pull. Most men spend their lives running away from their insecurities, trying to bury their fears under a mountain of fake confidence. The man who is impossible to manipulate does the exact opposite. He performs a cold, clinical autopsy on his own soul. He identifies every single trigger, every unhealed wound, and every desperate need he has, and he maps them out with the precision of a general preparing for a siege. He knows where he is weak, and because he knows it, those weaknesses can no longer be used against him. A manipulator cannot pull a handle that has been surgically removed. The harsh truth you are avoiding is that your virtues are often just hooks in disguise. You think your protective instinct toward women is a sign of being a good man. To a manipulator, it is a way to make you act against your own interests by feigning distress. You think your loyalty to the team is a sign of character. To a manipulator, it is a way to make you carry the weight of their failures. You think your drive for success is an asset. To a manipulator, it is a way to bait you into a trap by promising you a shortcut to status. You are being puppeted by your own unexamined desires. The sovereign man looks at these instincts with total detachment. He identifies the protector hook, the ego hook, and the status hook. He watches them like a hawk. When a manipulator tries to pull one, he recognizes the sensation instantly. He doesn't react to the pull, he simply observes the person trying to pull it. Think about the specific person in your life who always knows exactly what to say to make you feel guilty. They aren't magical, they've just found your accountability hook. They know you have a deep-seated fear of being seen as unreliable or selfish. Every time they want something from you, they start the conversation by subtly questioning your commitment. And every time you fall for it, you rush to prove them wrong. You do the favor, you give the money, or you sacrifice your time just to silence the voice of your own insecurity. The impossible man has realized that his guilt is an internal hallucination. He maps the guilt hook back to its source, usually a childhood need for approval, and he severs it. He accepts that he might be unreliable in their eyes, and he is perfectly fine with that. By owning his flaws, he renders them useless as weapons. The reality of your social existence is a constant battle for leverage, and your unresolved issues are the primary opening for your enemies. If you have a need to be seen as the smartest person in the room, a manipulator will simply act like a student and lead you right off a cliff while you're busy lecturing. If you have a fear of being broke, they will use the threat of financial loss to make you compromise your integrity. You are a walking map of vulnerabilities. The sovereign man spends his time in silence, identifying these biological leashes. He doesn't try to fix his insecurities to feel better. He identifies them so he can watch them. He becomes a black box to the outside world. They can see the surface, but they can never find the mechanism that moves him. You must develop the discipline of the psychological autopsy. You need to look back at every time you were manipulated and identify exactly which hook was pulled. Was it your pride? Was it your fear of loneliness? Was it your need for your father's respect? Do not hide from the answer. The moment you name the hook, you take away its power. You become the observer of your own reactions. When you are in a high-pressure interaction and you feel that familiar pull, that urge to comply, to defend, or to prove yourself, you must pause and say to yourself, there is the hook. Once you see the hook, you can choose not to bite. You remain in control of the only thing that matters, your next move. This is the final law of the unmanipulable man. He is his own most rigorous critic. He knows his dark corners better than any predator ever could. He has already told himself the worst things that can be said about him, so your insults have no sting. He has already accepted that he can survive with nothing, so your threats have no weight. He has already decided that his own approval is the only kind worth having, so your flattery has no value. He is a fortress that has been sealed from the inside. You can shout at the walls, you can try to bait the gate, but the man inside is not listening. He is busy building, while you are busy wasting your breath. This is the end of the line. You have been given the mechanics of the fortress. You have learned to starve the validation, master the pause, ignore the words, embrace the villain, sever the attachment, and map the hooks. If you have followed this journey to this point, you are no longer the man you were when we started. You have the awareness required to stop being a target and start being an operator. But awareness without action is just a more sophisticated form of failure. You must apply these laws with iron discipline. You must be willing to lose the friends who are only there to use you. You must be willing to let the peace break so that your sovereignty can begin. If this deep dive into the raw machinery of human nature has shifted your perspective, then align yourself with this mission. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. This isn't a favor to me, it is a confirmation to yourself that you are moving out of the light of the sheep and into the shadows of the wolves. By subscribing, you are ensuring that your mind stays sharp in a world designed to keep you dull and compliant. However, you must realize that there are strategies of manipulation, psychological defense, and dark influence that I simply cannot speak about here. The algorithm punishes the sharpest truths, but there is a place where the censorship ends. There is a place where we discuss the things that polite society is too afraid to whisper. It is behind the join button. It is called the architect level. If you are just a tourist, keep scrolling. This isn't for you. But if you are ready to stop playing the victim and start designing the game, if you want the uncensored raw breakdowns of human nature that they don't teach in school, click the join button. We are building a small circle of operators who understand the value of silence. You can stay in the light with the sheep, or you can step into the shadow with the wolves. The choice is yours. I want to thank you for staying until the very end. Your attention and your discipline have been earned, and they are the first indicators that you have what it takes to actually master these laws. Most people dropped off in the first 5 minutes because the truth was too cold for them. The fact that you are still here means you are ready. The game is happening all around you, every second of every day. But now the strings have been cut, the handles have been removed. Go back out into the world and watch the manipulators try to move you. Watch their confusion as their traps fail. Watch their desperation as their words bounce off your armor. You are no longer the prize, you are the player. I will see you in the next video.